September 25, 1997, Jordan. That day, one of Hamas's most powerful leaders, Khaled Mashal, got out of his car and walked toward his office in Amman. He had no idea he was being watched. As he climbed the steps, two Mossad agents were already waiting for him near the entrance. Their mission was simple and deadly. They had to apply a toxin that would kill Mashal within hours. But at the very last second, something went wrong. Mashal suddenly turned his head. The Mossad agent tried to touch the back of his neck with the device, but missed and hit his ear instead. Mashal screamed. His bodyguards rushed over, and the Israelis were caught on the spot. The poison had already entered his system. He was taken to a hospital and put on life support. Doctors said he only had a few days to live. But somehow, Mashal survived. Why did Mossad's carefully planned operation fail? And how did Israel end up saving the very man they were trying to kill? Today, Khaled Mashal is one of the most influential and most dangerous figures in Hamas. He runs the movement's international wing and heads its most radical faction. He stands on stages calling for the destruction of Israel, promising that the land of Jerusalem will be cleansed of Zionists. But he does it from afar, not from Gaza, where ordinary people die under Israeli strikes, but from the luxury hotels of Doha, Qatar. While people in Gaza hide in basements, Mashal lives like a billionaire. His fortune is estimated at $4 to $5 billion. He spends his time in five-star hotels that charge nearly $1,000 a night, dines in top restaurants, flies on private jets, and relaxes in diplomatic clubs. It is in Qatar where he gets most of his funding and political cover. This contrast symbolizes Hamas's double standard. While children in Gaza lack clean water and medicine, their leader lives like an emir. Israel has long considered Mashal a legitimate target. To Mossad, he was not just a politician, but the strategist of a terrorist network, the man who directed money and orders while rarely risking himself. Mashal was born in 1956 in the village of Silwad, near Ramallah. After the Six-Day War, his family moved to Kuwait. There, he graduated from university with a degree in physics and worked as a school teacher. It was in Kuwait that he joined the Muslim Brotherhood and later became one of the founders of Hamas in 1987. He rose quickly through the ranks and took charge of the movement's political bureau, the branch that handled not only propaganda, but also the financing of attacks against Israel. After the killing of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin in 2004, Mashal became the head of Hamas's international direction and a key figure in distributing funds coming from Qatar and Iran. For Israel, he was not merely an ideologue, but an architect of violence. Under his leadership, dozens of attacks were financed, suicide bombers were recruited, and money was funneled into Gaza through front charities. Israel put Mashal on its hit list in 1997. That year, a wave of bombings hit Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Dozens were killed, hundreds wounded, and Hamas claimed responsibility. In Israel, the political pressure was huge. The public demanded payback. Benjamin Netanyahu, then in his first term as prime minister, came under fierce criticism. He needed to show that Israel could strike back quickly and decisively. The idea emerged to eliminate the man believed to be financing and coordinating the attacks, Khaled Mashal. Mossad chief Danny Yadim received the order, get rid of Mashal. But it had to be done in a particular way, fast, quiet, and without diplomatic fallout. Mashal lived in Amman, the capital of Jordan, a country that had signed a peace treaty with Israel only a few years earlier. Any mistake could trigger an international scandal. So they bet on a secret poison, a new generation neurotoxin developed in Israeli intelligence labs. The substance was supposed to act fast, paralyze the nervous system, and leave no traces in blood or tissue. A few hours after contact, the victim would stop breathing. The death could be blamed on a stroke or a heart attack. The operation was planned under total secrecy. A 6-person team entered Amman on forged Canadian passports, posing as tourists. 2 of them were to deliver the strike, not with a bullet or a bomb, but with a single touch. The plan looked perfect. Mashal would die quietly, without a sound or a trace. Nobody expected that, a few hours later, this would become one of Mossad's most notorious failures, and the start of a personal confrontation between Israel and Khaled Mashal. Israel decided to act not on some distant border, but right in the heart of the so-called safe zone, in Amman. Why Jordan? Because since 1994, Jordan and Israel had a peace treaty. The scene in Amman was seen as controlled and predictable, and Hamas's presence there was treated as a convenient place to watch the enemy. That gave the operation a sense of low political cost. In theory, everything should have gone quietly, with no diplomatic explosion. The team prepared under cover. They entered on forged Canadian passports to avoid drawing attention and to create a believable legend, as tourists or business visitors. A 6-person cell operated in Amman. 2 were the strike team, 2 were a street surveillance and cover team, and 2 were reserves and the evacuation detail. Part of the team stayed in a nearby hotel, while the rest operated from the embassy, where safe corridors and transport were prepared. The operation was layered. Some people watched Mashal's movements and his guards. Their job was to pick the ideal day and time, when there would be the fewest witnesses, when his car would follow its usual route, when the guards' behavior would be predictable. Then there were the operators, carrying a special device, a compact sprayer, and the substance designed to cause a lightning-fast, fatal effect on minimal contact. Finally, people were assigned to cover the escape: cars, burner phones, spare passports, routes to the embassy, and the airport. The plan itself was simple, and at the same time risky. Approach Mashal, spray the neurotoxin, or apply it by touch, so the effect would not be instantaneous, so that Mashal would leave the scene, return to his routine, and die a few hours later in apparently natural circumstances. The operatives would then leave the country within hours, head home or to a secure corridor, and leave no visible trace. Special care was taken to minimize diplomatic fallout. No bullet, no explosion, no signs of a break-in. Only a quiet biological effect that could be written off as a heart attack, stroke, or sudden illness. The plan required a precise touch, perfect disguise, and a lightning-fast evacuation. But any scenario, however perfect on paper, depended on the human factor, the guards' reactions, unexpected schedule changes, and chance witnesses. That human vulnerability ultimately tore apart the planned quiet scenario, turning the operation into an international crisis. September 25, 1997. Morning. Amman. It is hot and the city goes about its day. Nobody expected that this morning would mark one of Mossad's most famous failures. Khaled Mashal steps out of his car in front of the Hamas office like he does every day. The routine is the same. The driver waits by the curb, a few aides stand nearby, and bodyguards are a few steps away. 2 men, who look like tourists, start to approach. One holds a can of soda, a simple distraction. The other quietly, almost imperceptibly, pulls out a small device, a cylinder the size of a pen. Inside is a deadly neurotoxin, a formula that remains secret to this day, designed to kill within hours and leave no trace. The operative gets close, pretending it is an accidental brush. His job is to touch the device to Mashal's neck, as if they were bumping shoulders. But then something happens that no plan accounted for. According to one version, a small girl's voice, Mashal's daughter, calls from the building. Mashal turns for a second. In that instant, the agent misses. The hit goes into his ear instead of his neck. Mashal feels a sharp jolt, like an electric shock. He flinches, turns, and sees 2 men. A shout rings out. The bodyguards react instantly. They rush at the men. One agent tries to slip away around a corner. The other takes a step back, trying to blend into the crowd. Everything falls apart. The guards catch up within meters. A short scuffle breaks out. One agent knocks a guard down, but passers-by and Jordanian police arrive. The alarm is raised. Within minutes, both suspects are brought to the nearest police station. During the search, they are found with Canadian passports, but security officers quickly spot the fakes. Numbers don't match. The font is wrong. Within an hour, it is clear. These are Mossad agents. Meanwhile, Mashal is getting worse. First, a little dizziness, then nausea, vomiting, and sudden weakness. He is rushed to an Amman hospital. Doctors are puzzled. Tests show no obvious poison, but his condition deteriorates fast. His pulse drops, limbs begin to paralyze, and breathing grows shallow. By evening, doctors put him on a ventilator. They tell the family, he will not live until morning. And in Amman, a diplomatic storm is already building. Jordanian intelligence reports to King Hussein, Israeli agents have been caught trying to assassinate the Hamas leader. The news spreads instantly through the press and reaches Western capitals. What was meant to be a quiet, untraceable death turns into a loud international scandal that threatens the fragile peace between Israel and Jordan. Back in Jerusalem, Mossad is stunned. An operation planned down to the last detail failed because of a single split second, one turn of the head. The plan that was supposed to prove Mossad's precision collapses into a disaster, and everything goes off script. When the first reports about the failed operation reached Amman, chaos erupted inside the royal palace. King Hussein was furious. Israel, the country that had signed a historic peace treaty with Jordan only 3 years earlier, had secretly carried out an assassination on Jordanian soil using fake passports from Canada, a friendly nation. He immediately summoned the Israeli ambassador and demanded an explanation. His message was clear and sharp. If Khaled Mashal dies, the captured agents will be executed. Diplomatic relations between the two countries will collapse. Meanwhile, Mashal's condition was rapidly getting worse. After the injection to his ear, he first felt weakness and a pounding headache. Then came vomiting and a sudden loss of consciousness. By the evening of September 25th, his body began to shut down, paralysis spreading, breathing slowing. Doctors put him on a ventilator and told his family he had less than 48 hours to live. No test could identify the poison. In Israel, a political storm broke out. The news had already reached Washington. U.S. President Bill Clinton personally called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. According to witnesses, the conversation was tense. Clinton demanded that Israel fix the situation and save Mashal before the crisis became irreversible. King Hussein gave an ultimatum. Either Israel delivers the antidote, or the Mossad agents will face trial in Amman. And as the king hinted, the sentence will be death. Netanyahu knew there was no choice. The failed mission now threatened not just Israel's reputation, but the fragile peace with Jordan. Mossad urgently contacted its labs to prepare a vial of antidote. While politicians argued and negotiated, Khaled Mashal was dying. His skin turned pale, his breathing slowed. Doctors said quietly, "His organs are shutting down. It's only a matter of hours." Israel found itself trapped in a situation with no good way out. To save its captured agents, it had to hand over the antidote, a formula developed in Mossad's top-secret labs. For the intelligence service, this was close to a humiliation, an admission not only that the operation existed, but that Israel had used a deadly toxin on the soil of an allied country. Still, there was no other option. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the antidote to be delivered immediately. Mossad Director Danny Yatam flew to Amman in person, and one of the backup officers already in Jordan, Mishka Ben David, was chosen as the courier. It was his job to hand over the formula and instruct Jordanian doctors on its use. At the Amman hospital, doctors were already preparing to pronounce Khaled Mashal dead. His condition was critical: paralysis of the lower body, respiratory failure, and collapsing blood pressure. But when the Israeli antidote was injected intravenously, something miraculous happened. Within hours, his pulse steadied, his breathing returned, and by morning, Mashal had regained consciousness. The man Israel saw as a legitimate target became the one who survived Mossad, a living symbol and hero for Hamas supporters. But the story didn't end there. King Hussein seized the moment to pressure Israel into a political concession. He agreed to release the captured agents only on one condition: the freedom of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, Hamas's spiritual leader and founder, who was serving a life sentence in an Israeli prison. Under heavy U.S. pressure and facing diplomatic collapse, Netanyahu had to agree. Yassin was released, the agents returned home, and Khaled Mashal became a legend across the Arab world. For Israel, however, the operation went down as one of Mossad's most painful failures. Instead of eliminating an enemy, the country ended up with an international scandal, the release of a terrorist leader, and a new icon of so-called resistance. When the Israeli agents finally returned home, there were no celebrations, no medals, no applause. In Israel, outrage was building. The public demanded answers. How could the legendary Mossad, the most feared and respected intelligence service in the world, suffer such a humiliating disaster? Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, desperate to save face, found himself under fire. From the opposition, from the military, and even from within the intelligence community itself. In the Knesset, lawmakers spoke openly of shame. Newspapers ran headlines like, "The operation meant to destroy terror has destroyed trust in Mossad." The pressure was so intense that Mossad's director, Danny Yadim, resigned. Inside the intelligence world, a reckoning began. Israel re-examined its approach to operations abroad, especially in countries with which it had diplomatic ties. After Amman, one thing became clear. Even a justified act in the name of security could ignite a political explosion if it crossed sovereign lines. The failed mission became a textbook example for future agents, a lesson in how overconfidence, political haste, and protocol violations can destroy even a perfectly designed plan. For months, Mossad's internal investigators dissected every detail of the operation, and the deeper they looked, the clearer it became. It wasn't just bad luck. The failure was built in from the start. The first mistake was political haste. Netanyahu wanted quick results. He needed to prove to Israel and to the world that the country could strike back after the suicide bombings that had shaken Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Mossad was given almost no time to prepare. Legends weren't fully built, logistics weren't properly tested, and the mission was approved without the depth of planning Mossad was famous for. The second miscalculation was the choice of location. Amman, the capital of Jordan, seemed perfect. Mashal lived there, and the country was seen as a peaceful neighbor. But that illusion became a trap. Jordanian intelligence monitored every movement of foreign visitors. Any suspicious activity triggered an immediate response. And once the agents were caught, there was nowhere to run. The third failure was technological. The poison used on Mashal was an experimental neurotoxin. In the lab, it worked flawlessly, fast, invisible, leaving no trace. But in the real world, things were different. The dosage behaved unpredictably, symptoms appeared slower than expected, and to Mossad's surprise, doctors managed to stabilize the victim. And finally, the human factor, the one variable no plan can control. One quick turn of the head, a fraction of a second, and the agent missed. Then came panic, confusion, loss of control. A mission designed for surgical precision fell apart in plain sight. A chain of small, seemingly minor details led to a full-scale catastrophe. The outcome was devastating. Khaled Mashal, the man who was supposed to die, became a living legend, the man Mossad couldn't kill. His status within Hamas grew dramatically, and after the release of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the group's spiritual leader, Hamas's radical wing, gained new strength and momentum. For Israel, the price was heavy. Relations with Jordan froze for months. Intelligence cooperation halted. Across the Arab world, Mashal's survival became a powerful propaganda victory. Worse still, Mossad lost parts of its operational networks in Arab countries. After the scandal, agents had to dismantle safe houses, close residencies, and disappear into the shadows. In 2014, years after the Amman drama, Mishka Ben David, the Mossad officer who had delivered the antidote that saved Khaled Mashal, wrote him a public message. It was simple but heavy with meaning. I helped save your life. Now it's time for you to save others and stop the bloodshed. In an interview with The Telegraph, Ben David said, I thought it was time to appeal to the rational side of Khaled Mashal, and I am the one who should do it, because I'm the person who helped bring him back to life. Mishka Ben David recalled how, in 1997, he had been undercover in an Amman hotel with a vial of antidote, which he eventually handed over to Jordanian doctors. Now, years later, he was urging Mashal to abandon extremism. He compared the ongoing conflict to a grizzly bear fighting a wildcat. The bear will win, but it will still be covered in wounds. His message was clear. If Hamas refuses to change its course, Palestinians will continue dying by the thousands and Gaza will face destruction. Ben David pleaded with Mashal to let more pragmatic voices within Hamas reach a compromise, as the PLO once did. But his appeal was met with silence. Khaled Mashal gave no response, neither publicly nor privately. There was no acknowledgement, no apology, no dialogue. Instead, just a few months later, he delivered another fiery speech, accusing Israel of occupation and genocide against Palestinians and declaring that resistance is the only path. For Ben David, it was a moral blow. The man whose life he once saved hadn't changed. He continued to incite violence. According to Israeli sources, Mashal treated Ben David's message as nothing more than a propaganda gesture and even joked in private that the Jews now want to teach us peace after trying to kill us. Today, Khaled Mashal lives in Doha, running Hamas's political wing from exile. The Amman operation remains one of Mossad's most painful and studied failures, a mission that not only exposed the limits of intelligence work, but also created a powerful propaganda icon, a living leader who survived Mossad. And yet, Mashal is still a threat to Israel. Even from luxury hotel suites, he continues to promote violence. After the October 7th attacks, he publicly praised the operation as a smart act of legitimate resistance, calling the deaths of Palestinians a necessary sacrifice. He urged the Arab and Muslim world to join the war and encouraged jihadist ideology in action. In August 2024, he again called for renewed suicide bombings, rhetoric designed to escalate conflict and destroy any hope of peace. Attempts to eliminate him haven't stopped either. In September 2025, according to reports, an Israeli airstrike targeted Hamas's headquarters in Doha, while Mashal was allegedly inside. Hamas later claimed its leaders survived. Each failed attempt and every fiery speech only strengthened his myth of untouchability, while leaving Israel facing a very real threat from a man who continues to orchestrate terror from afar. The conclusion is clear: the Amman operation and Israel's decision to save Mashal turned him into one of Hamas's most powerful political and symbolic assets. For Israel, this story remains a reminder that intelligence work is not just about tactics, but about long-term consequences. A spared enemy can return stronger and far more dangerous. What do you think? If Mossad's operation in Amman had succeeded and Khaled Mashal had died in 1997, would it have changed the history of the Middle East? Or would Hamas have simply found another leader and continued its path of terror? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this story interesting, give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.